It's Cameron for WHOATV. Today we're going to be auditing some MMA journalism. Let's get straight into it.
I'm on one today, in case you couldn't tell. Colby Covington versus Kamaru Usman has been made. The second fight of these two, and the first one was an absolute classic. As good a fight as I've ever seen, ever. In UFC boxing, the technique, the fitness, the rivalry, the utter hatred, just the brutality of it. They started like a house on fire. It was a beautiful fight. And I think that these are the two best welterweights of all time.
No, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do this.
I know people love George St. Pierre, and what he did was paved the way. But to me, these two are just as good as it gets. I'm looking forward to it, but I do think...
No, we're not going to do this today. True, Geordie, I love you to death, man, but we're not going to do this today. Did you just insinuate that Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington are the two best welterweights of all time, above George St. Pierre? You're having a laugh, mate. I'm not having it. So let's talk about George. We're going to try and put some respect on George's name, despite the best efforts of the mainstream MMA media. George St. Pierre is probably the best mixed martial artist of all time, let alone best welterweight. Champ, remember. George won championships in 2 weight divisions, welterweight and middleweight later on when he smashed Michael Bisping. What are we talking about, True Geordie? Did you even see George St. Pierre fight? See, this is the problem with mainstream MMA media. A lot of them, a la True Geordie, have only just started watching MMA. True Geordie's MMA knowledge extends to when Conor McGregor knocked out Jose Aldo, right? That wasn't long ago. MMA has a storied history that goes back well before Conor McGregor. How about let's talk to Royce Gracie. Let's talk to Renzo Gracie. Let's talk to Kazushi Sakuraba. Let's talk to Pride FC. And then we get onto George St. Pierre. George St. Pierre revolutionized the game. A dude who was as sharp mentally as he was brilliant physically. George could have competed on the Canadian wrestling team at the Olympics. He was that good. Let's talk about the way he destroyed Thiago Alves. Took away his best weapons in low leg kicks / calf kicks. Took them away, put him on his back, dominated him. George St. Pierre's in the running for the best mixed martial arts of all time. How are you even going to talk about Colby Covington? Could be better than him as a welterweight. How many championships has Colby Covington won? That's how many. None. Let's not do this, True Geordie. I love you to bits, man. But there is an issue here with mainstream media. The mainstream mixed martial arts media don't know mixed martial arts. They only know Ronda Rousey and Conor McGregor and Brock Lesnar because they were mainstream, right? They can't talk to you about any sort of nuanced mixed martial arts going back beyond those guys. How dare you, True Geordie? What are you talking about here, mate? George St. Pierre. Put some respect on the chap's name. Let's talk about his defenses. 12 defenses of his belt as a welterweight. Who's done that? No one. No one's even come close. Do you remember Matt Hughes, True Geordie? Did you ever see how dominant Matt Hughes was? Have you seen the fight with Frank Trigg, where he picked him up and hoisted him over his shoulder like the true farmer he was and dumped him over in his own corner and proceeded to smash him in vengeance? You don't even know these guys, so you don't know how brilliant George St. Pierre was to dominate Matt Hughes and TKO him. Do you remember the low leg kicks that he gave him to distract him and then came high? You don't remember because you don't know, because you are mainstream MMA media. You only know MMA and UFC. In fact, that's the joke, right? You only know UFC as MMA. You weren't there for Pride. You never saw the great fights, the Fedor Emelianenko versus Mirko Crocra. You weren't there for those. You didn't see Fedor versus Big Nog, Antonio Minotauro Nogueira. You've never seen it, mate. So this is why you get people voicing these crazy opinions, even insinuating for a second that Colby Covington is better than the greatest, the great one, George St. Pierre. Rush. How dare you? 12 defences, mate. 12 defences. George St. Pierre beat all of them. He beat Matt Hughes twice. First by TKO head kick, second by submission armbar. He beat Josh Koscheck twice. He beat John Fitch. He beat BJ Penn. These are all-time greats. You have to gauge somebody's true greatness by how they do up against other greats, right? Who was Colby Covington fought who's great? Kamaru Usman? Potentially. TBC. And how did he do against him? He lost. Okay, so he did well, and it was a great fight, but ultimately, you're trying to put him in the annals of welterweight greatness. You're talking about George St. Pierre, right? So you got to be super critical. You've got to be harsh. You've got to be a harsh and fair judge when it comes to greatness. It's too important. This is objectivity here. You can't say Colby Covington is greater than George St. Pierre. He hasn't even won a title yet. He hasn't even won a title. And you know what the worst thing is? I don't think he ever will. Whilst Kamaru Usman is still in there and still holding that belt, the chances are that Colby Covington's not going to beat him. George St. Pierre beat John Fitch. He beat Matt Serra, of course, in the rematch. He beat Matt Hughes twice. He beat BJ Penn, Thiago Alves, Dan Hardy, Josh Koscheck again, Jake Shields, Carlos Conduit, Nick Diaz, Johnny Hendricks, Michael Bisping upperweight after coming back out of retirement. What's Colby Covington done? Who's he beat? Chris Ensley, Jason Jackson, Max Griffin, Brian Barberena, Dong Young Kim, Damian Maia. Okay, so we're talking now. Fair play. Rafael Dos Anjos. That one counts. Brilliant fighter, although he doesn't like pressure wrestlers. So caveat there. Robbie Lawler passed it. Usman lost. And then Tyron Woodley, obviously over the hill champion, but over the hill past his best. George St. Pierre's beating all of his chaps, the likes of Matt Hughes, at their peak, the zenith of their powers. I think that's outrageous. That's blasphemy. How dare you, True Geordie? So the broad issue here again, newfangled MMA journalists do not know. Forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do. They don't have the storied education. They didn't grow up with UFC. They've only just come onto it with the introduction of mainstream superstars like Conor McGregor, like Ronda Rousey and Brock Lesnar. They're not going back and doing their due diligence. They're not going to buy Fight Pass and go and look at the legends, the Crow Crops, the Big Nogs, the Fedors. They're not going to do it. The Gracie Hunter, Kazushi Sakuraba. They're not going to look at Anderson Silva pre-UFC. In fact, they won't even look at Anderson Silva pre-Conor McGregor, right? They won't have seen his introduction into the UFC, the amazing victories against the likes of Lieben and Forrest Griffin. They don't know. They don't know. Forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do. We need to fix this, I think. I think this needs to become a segment. The MMA audit, let's call it. We need to start auditing these mainstream MMA. As much as I love True Geordie, he's great for the sport. He's bringing a lot of eyes to it. He's got viewers for days and subscribers for days. However, what he doesn't have is MMA knowledge. That's not his durable competitive advantage. He doesn't know the history. And so we've got to ask ourselves the question, right? Should he be talking to MMA like this? Should he be allowed to get in his speaker box and make such outlandish claims as Colby Covington being a greater welterweight than George St. Pierre? I don't think so. True Geordie, have a word with yourself, mate. You want to have a word with some real MMA fans who've been in the game from inception. Do me a favour, True Geordie. Put some respect on George St. Pierre's name.